Hey everybody, welcome to Lore Friday for February 5th, 2021. I'm your host, DM Galabond. Alright, so today on Lore Friday, we're going to be taking a look at the last of the side adventures in the Princess of the Apocalypse campaign. This one focuses on a single charismatic individual, and it is a really kind of a cool way to show how um, an organized enemy that you think you have defeated may not go away so quickly. Uh, may find a way of beginning to coalesce once again and have to be put down yet another time. Um, and so that makes it seem like this organization is a bit more resilient than if you just were able to defeat it and it would go away and never be heard from again. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at how this particular thing is handled in this specific uh, campaign. All right, so Haayon the Punisher, is, like we said, from Princess of the Apocalypse campaign, published in April of 2015, and it is for level 13 characters. Now, the timing of this particular side adventure is you're not supposed to run this until after the party has defeated both the air and the water cults and destroyed the prophets for both of those cults. This this means that depending on what order your party, your players decide to tackle the four different cults, you may actually never get to this because the air and the water cults may be the last ones there. And but they are probably the two easiest ones to defeat, and so they would be the ones that you might be expected to defeat the first. So the theme of this particular adventure is to foil a villain's evil scheme. The setting is a military camp in the hills overlooking Jundar's Pass. Now, the adventure itself doesn't give us any maps, but if you run your games on Roll20, you're in luck. There is a free resource for Roll20 users called the Roll20 Map Pack, and if you look for that in the I think you look for that in the marketplace area over in Roll20, and just look for the free resources or the no cost resources. You'll find that Roll20 map pack, and you can download those. It's a series of about, oh, I don't know, 10 or a dozen different battle maps that you can use. And one of those battle maps is a camp map. It has a big fire pit in the middle and has a whole bunch of different tents of various sizes around that you can put on the map level or the DM level or whatever. So that would be a good generic map that you could use, or if you have a better quality map that either you've created yourself or that you found from another source, you could use that. So there's not a specific map, but it just should evoke the a camp of a military style. The teaser is that a cloud giant named Haayon has rounded up defeated and disorganized air and water cultists. Backstory is that Haayon the Punisher is a late adherent to the Howling Hatred cult, that's the air cult, and he is determined to rebuild the air cult into a force that can summon Yansi Ben through the elemental plane of air portal. Now, the synopsis is that you have to defeat the cultist and the cloud giant to end the threat of the air cult reforming. And so now you may be thinking to yourself, wait a second, this doesn't come until after I've already defeated the prophet of both air and water. So why is this reforming? Well, let's think about real world uh, organizations and the fact that real world organizations have resilience even when they are um, smashed and oppressed by very powerful enemies. I'll give you a great example. Think about the Mediterranean world 2,000 years ago. The most powerful force in, you know, the history of the known world at that time was the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire was always having little problems with little groups that were popping up and being rebellious and whatnot, and they were always going and squashing them. History doesn't remember many of those organizations. But there was this one little ragtag group of people over in a backwater province called Judea. And these people were following somebody that they called a prophet, some guy named Jesus. And they were beginning to be kind of a thorn in the side of uh, you know, of Pontius Pilate, who was the governor for Rome in that area. So the people who were the Jewish leaders of the day, the politically connected leaders of the traditional peoples in that area of the day, they went to Pilate. They said, "Come on, we got to find a reason to arrest this guy, execute him. Your problems will be solved." So they did. Well, now I ask you, 2,000 years later, who has more numbers? The followers of Caesar or the followers of Jesus? I'm just saying that this is that's a real world example where the most powerful force in the world at the time thought they had squashed and extinguished a group that refused to be silenced. Uh, this is the same way in this particular campaign. Your party of adventurers may be powerful enough to defeat the prophets of the elemental cults of air, water, fire, and earth. But just because you defeat the prophets doesn't mean that all the adherents just simply fall apart and go away. All it takes is one charismatic leader, in this case a cloud giant, to come and grab a number of those followers, pull them together, and now they begin to coalesce and come back as an echo of the air and the water cult that you just fought, in the recent past. So um, that's kind of a cool way if you think about it. If you're a DM and your players go and they find their way to the heart of an enemy organization and they take out the leader of that enemy organization and they say, "Woohoo, we've done it, we've done it. We don't have to worry about those guys again." Here's a way you can as the DM, you can think of, okay, well that was too easy for him. You can go and grab a, you know, very charismatic, powerful monster and bring that in and have them bring some of the former followers together. Okay, and now it's a sudden, oh, geez, we got to go and fight these guys again. So that's kind of my favorite element about this particular adventure from a DM standpoint. So uh, we're going to look a little bit more at the specifics of this adventure in a few minutes, but that's kind of what I want you to pay attention to. So as you're planning and running your own campaigns, when you get to that point, and you inevitably will, where you know an enemy that you thought was going to really test the party, they wind up blowing through it too easily. Like, okay, doesn't mean that all of your opportunity to use that is lost. You can still use it by following this example, or this may spark a different idea of how you can have the uh, former followers of that coalesce around a different either leader or organizational model or something like that. Okay, easiest homebrew adaptation can be a random encounter in an unrelated campaign, or it can be adapted in a campaign where the party has recently defeated a recurring enemy organization. Um, and it can be easily used with other editions because giants and humanoids are reflected in every edition. I mean, they're a core part of the game in every edition of D&D. So it's compatible with any edition that you might want to run this game. So, uh, the as we said, this only happens after the prophets of Cult of Howling Hatred and Cult of Crushing Wave have been defeated. The Those former followers have broken into bands of raiders, going across the countryside, causing trouble, and survivors are sort of leaderless and running around without direction. But um, Haayon the Punisher is a new charismatic leader that gathers some of these dispersed cultists. Uh, and as a cloud giant, he hopes to become the next leader of the air cult. He arrived after the cult was already broken, but he he imposes a brutal regime of self-denial and atonement on the surviving cultists. Basically saying it was your lack of faith, your lack of discipline that is the reason that you all were defeated and you failed. I am going to break you and then mold you into a fighting force that Jan Sieben will really be proud of. That's the kind of megalomania that you would think that this Haayon the Punisher would have to have. Uh, he really doesn't know a lot about what's happening underground. He's questioning all the cultists to find out maybe what's going on. So he might have a little bit of information. It's very nebulous. You, as the DM, are free to figure out how much these surviving cultists would know or wouldn't know about the party based on what they have done. Um, and then the party will start to get reports that people that are called the Punished start showing up in settlements. And these are refugees shuffling down from the hills north of town. Some wear the white robes and black feathered cowls of air cultists, while others are dressed in the green of the water cultists. Each person bears a placard around his or her neck reading, "I am punished." So these are people that Heian has found unworthy, um, and they are sent away. Now, of course, the problem with sending them away is that they know where the camp is, and not not all of the people that have been rejected. Some of the people who've been rejected, they are going to think about the decisions they've made, and they're going to decide that they really need to double down, and they are going to harden themselves and go about doing whatever it takes to prove to Heian that they really are worthy and they should be taken back. But some of them are going to be bitter. And if you live in the U.S., you've seen a good example of this in the since the start of 2021, where there have been a number of people that have bought into a lot of cuckoo uh, ideas and thought that a certain political leader was going to have their back. And now they, like in droves, they are abandoning the cause because they realize, oh, what the rest of us were telling them all along. Yeah, just another politician. You can't believe anything that person says any more than you can believe anything any other politician says. So, eh, just deal with it. So, a lot of people have been abandoning because they feel betrayed, um, by a cause that they once thought was so important that they were willing to do some pretty extreme things in the name of that cause. All right, so you're going to have some of those same people are going to be part of this cult, and those are the people that your party can go to and go, hey, uh, who's this cat that is punishing me? Yeah, you are really dedicated. Yeah, you believed, and the fact that you believe so strongly, that's commendable. And you know, this guy is clearly wrong for sending you away. Let us know where he is. We'll go teach this guy a lesson. They will never underestimate you again. Come on, you can trust us. After all, we're adventurers. We have your back. Come on, spell it, spell it, spell it. And some of them, at that point in time, they're going to break down and sob and they're going to spill the beans, and boom, your characters are going to know right where this Haayon the Punisher is. So, the giant has a camp in a hilltop ruin in the hills overlooking Jindar's Pass, and a footpath leads to a wooden stone wall that rings a hilltop. A dozen tents are pitched in the center of the shelter of the walls, along with a pavilion. One side of the camp, 5 slumped figures are tied to wooden posts, each captive with a placard around his or her neck. Silent figures in leather breeches stand guard. So these um, are the punished. Uh, these are the punished cultists, and they have 1 hit point remaining and a wooden placard reading "I am punished" on them. And then there's 5 crushing wave reavers and a howling hatred priest with a balloon pack watching the outer camp. Um, and the cloud giant with 2 feathergale knights and 6 loyal cultists gather inside the pavilion. And there's 2 hippogriffs that serves the knights as mounts. Um, so you would have to then go and fight the giant, fight the people in the pavilion, and fight the outer defenders. So it's a pretty big encounter. You'd be looking at 5 reavers, 1 priest, 2 knights, probably on hippogriffs, 6 loyal cultists, and a cloud giant would be the battle that your party would have. That's why it's a CR13 encounter. Is that unless your party has a way of sort of quietly picking off and eliminating some uh, of the potential combatants, they're going to have a big, huge fight on their hand if they go after this. And obviously, cloud giants have innate magical spells. Um, so Hayan's pavilion contains 2 large wooden chests filled with valuables confiscated from those. Uh, they hold 260 gold pieces. A pouch with 6 citrines worth 60 gold pieces each. Another pouch containing 2 potions of flying. And, you could then maybe say, depending on how stingy you've been with giving out magic items, maybe there's other magic items that Hayon has confiscated that are in those chests, and it might be a good time to sort of give out. Or if the party seems like they're sort of low on gold, you maybe bump up that gold but there's nothing really central to the plot that's in here. It's just, a way of showing, oh, if we let this guy go and he's gonna keep, he's gonna keep bringing more and more and more people together, and he's going to build this current small force into a larger and larger force, and maybe reconstitute the air cult uh, in the end. So that is Haayon the Punisher, and that is the kind of thing you can draw some inspiration from that. Think about how a cloud giant, uh, being a really charismatic, very powerful, and you know, literally larger than life figure, uh, that would inspire people you know, whose hopes and dreams have been shattered um, by the defeat of the prophet that they have followed for all this time while they've been members of this cult. And he is the kind of figure that can draw those together. So, whatever is appropriate for your particular campaign that you're running, if you're running a homebrew and you want to take inspiration from this, maybe if it's kind of an undead themed thing, maybe there's a vampire, very charismatic vampire, or maybe there's some kind of political figure if you're running a more gritty, low magic, or even a high magic thing, but in a civilization that is, uh, maybe it's kind of an urban campaign. You might have some sort of a political leader that would rise from the ashes of the force that you have defeated. Uh, you think of, something more modern than the example we gave before. You think of how in, historians looking back at the last century, uh, they say at the end of World War One, the Allies, the U.S. and its European allies, really came down extremely hard and were extremely punitive against the Germans for their opposition in World War I. And it was when this very proud, very uh, well organized, long history people were smashed down so hard by their enemies, that gave room for a very charismatic figure like Adolf Hitler to come, and even though he had a lot of crazy and ill-conceived ideas, he was able to, because the people's um, you know opinion of themselves was so low, he was able to sort of grab a lot of them that were looking for some way forward. And by starting with rebuilding the infrastructure and making them realize, oh, we can be a productive country again, and he then, you know, kept adding, more and more of his element of crazy ideas until he had an entire nation that was, you know, supporting the Nazi Party and a ultra-fascist regime. So, and nationalist to the extreme. So that's a thing that you can use in your own games when the heroes, if the heroes kind of go overboard in meting out justice, and they start to get cruel in the way they're meting out justice. Just remember that you can have some powerful people that come from off stage and start to organize the people that have been beaten down so much, and can come in and be a force that in some cases is even more powerful than the force that the party had to defeat in the first place. So just keep that in mind when you're running your campaign. and setting challenges for your players. All right, that is going to do it for our look at Haayon the Punisher. Thank you guys for sticking with me. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, click the post notification bell so that you too can be alerted every time new content drops on the channel. And for everyone, I hope you have a wonderful week. Check out the other content that we have on the channel, and we will talk to you later. Good night, everybody.